It's Game 3 of the Shiloh campaign as the Word of Blake is desperate to push back the coalition aggressors. We had enough people to do Games 3 and 4 out of the 5. We lose either of them, and the Word of Blake loses the campaign. It's the 11th hour for the Word of Blake, and the Mane Domini are making an appearance. They are liquidating the re-education camp in an attempt to redirect the attention of the coalition forces to the nerve center for the re-education system. With the Mane Domini making an appearance, they brought along with them some mercenary allies that are absolutely desperately needed at this point in the campaign. Leading the assault for the coalition forces is an Inner Sphere assault lance, loaded down with quite a few heavy mechs. In addition to, they got the Gensokyo Raiders, which have been moving from the LZ ever since the beginning. And with the starport still open, the Word of Blake desperately moves the conventional militia north into the highlands where they can protect the avenues of approach to the starport and keep it from falling to enemy hands. If the coalition cannot take it directly, they're going to close down all the approach vectors. Taking this task on is Fatbird's mechs and protomechs that aren't locked up with the tanks outside the starport. Since my buddy Memphis Mark explicitly mentioned that he was going to avoid the conventionals in the last game and head towards the starport, he gets a free move forward towards the control center in the center of the board. They need to get near it, they need to stop by it for one turn, and then the whole system will be shut down. They just have to get near the building for one turn uncontested, and the system administrators will get the better sense of their own mortality and just turn things off. Raijin moves up the center to help contest it. He doesn't get quite there. The Viking moves up the southern end with a whole gaggle of challengers and other units controlling the southern end for a fire support area, and the Dasher and other clan units move in from the south. Preta A and Preta O and Malak begin moving along the northern end with their Mane Domini pilots. They're hoping to engage the assault lance out in the open, while the Cicada dashes up the center and is in one hex of the building. Already, this seems like a bad idea. I should have sent one of the lighter units out there, so I send the Reaver down. We're going to alpha strike the mess out of the Cicada, but lo and behold, right behind him, the rifleman opens up, tags it multiple times, and manages to nail it in the fuel tank and the engine, giving it a force withdrawal status. It's otherwise okay, but it has to wave off. This leaves the Cicada there with nobody else contesting him, so we open up with every other mech on the board, hoping to be able to put it down. We just have to put it into force withdrawal so that it doesn't cause the system administrators of the education camp to reconsider what they're doing. Normally, I wouldn't give much credit to the rifleman being a great anti-aircraft platform, but it did its job. It just shooed away a pretty impressive aerospace platform. On the northern highlands, the infantry begin dismounting and otherwise skirmishing with the clan forces that are moving in tandem with their protomechs as their lightning fighters begin moving into position. And lo and behold, the Cicada got the point. The system administrators shut everything off. Game over. Okay, I won't admit to being a great ref, but I should have done the math on that and realized that the game would be over so quickly. So we go ahead and recall it as being 2 turns uncontested. The Dasher fires up its mask, and wouldn't you know it, it is the most catastrophic mask failure I have ever seen. He blows out his hip and his leg, and he starts limping back behind the buildings. Cicada makes itself useful by rushing around the sides, trying to open up a new flank for the Word of Blake forces, while the rest of the assault lance for the coalition begins moving forward, taking positions around the office buildings. On the northern end of the board, the assault mechs are successfully diverted. They are engaging the 2 mediums and the light. And that leaves the riflemen and the King Crab along the center of the board to take on the Word of Blake assault units that are clearing through the center of the city sections. With renewed vigor, the Word of Blake forces begin hammering home everything they can. Some of the shots aren't the best, but we focus fire everything we can against the rifleman that is hulled down behind the office building. In true fact, my buddy Memphis Mark started to keep track of just how much damage we're actually flying through the office building. It was a hilarious amount of damage that most certainly would have necessitated a few new screen doors. Nonetheless, the rifleman takes quite a bit of damage and manages to fall over, taking just a little bit too much damage for it to take. With the word of Blake flushing through the city as fast as they can, the rifleman starts taking on the units in front of it along with the king crab, while the clan units begin swinging wide, taking on the fire support units and trying to open up a new flank on the southern end of the board. And the aerospace fighter is called off. In the Northern Highlands, the lightnings ring it home, landing cluster munition after cluster munition, devastating the proto-mechs and practically leaving the mechs on their own, even though they deal quite a bit of damage to the conventional tanks, but it buys time. It distracts them long enough for the infantry to completely disembark and fortify themselves along a wood line. It's the beginning of turn 3 as the clan continues swinging south, while the Word of Blake concentrates their forces and starts moving through the center of the city. We've got enough forces, we're going to level them up against the building line and hope that the clans come out one by one or piecemeal in smaller formations, and we'll just take them on when we get there. We got a turn or two till that happens. We're going to focus fire on all the inner sphere units that are around the office building. We still haven't addressed that noisy cricket of a cicada that has managed to flush itself into our rear lines, but during the fire phase, it'll become quite clear that we don't have enough units to actually dedicate everything towards the units that are around the office building, because they just don't have the same kind of line of sight. So a lot of them will just turn around and start nailing the cicada over and over again. Raijin takes it to the limit to open up another flank behind the assault mechs and manages to slip on the pavement and crash through a building. He's had better days. The Mane Domini continue to threaten the assault mechs in the northern plains, and since they lost initiative, they really lost bad. Nearly all the mediums and lights gets into the rear arc of the Highlander and begin eviscerating it, hitting it over and over and over again, damaging the internals and leaving the whole formation a little bit weaker for it. The Word of Blake Gambit, however, is paying off to some degree. We are able to focus fire on the King Crab and the Rifleman in the distance that has backed off from the fighting, having taken quite a brutal beating in the past couple turns. 2 SRMs fly off the rack of the Legacy and manages to tag the King Crab that's sitting right in front of him to the face, and the Awesome manages to open up with its PPC, tag it again in the face, and take the cockpit out. The machine was otherwise pristine, and now they are down an assault mech. The inner sphere now holds the center with only a damaged rifleman. Even though the shots are scattered, the clans start engaging the southern elements of the inner sphere gaggle that we have over there, and we managed to trade a few shots that couldn't otherwise be directed downrange towards the inner sphere units of interest. Nonetheless, everyone else turns around and tags the cicada over and over and over again, managing to breach the internal structure in several locations and puts it into forced withdrawal. Meanwhile, in the Northern Highlands, the infantry have successfully disembarked and the proto-mechs are moving forward, while the clan mechs engage the various hover tanks out there and generally make a mess of them piecemeal, but otherwise keeps them from supporting their proto-mechs as they enter the woods. It's the beginning of turn 4, and the inner sphere has lost control of the center. There's no way that they're going to be able to push back into it without significant help from their clan assets as they race to the southern end of the board, trying to open up a new flank on the Word of Blake. But the coalition still has quite a bit of weight behind them. They're moving forward, even though the cicada has to learn the better part of valor and find another way home. The riflemen will leap through the air with his jump jets and land right next to the collection center and between the garage. But the infantry and challengers are now navigating the narrow city streets, sweeping the area, building by building, claiming the block for the word of Blake and pushing the coalition forces further out. And as the flank in the north was mostly lost, the mediums and lights from the Mane Domini begin moving in, taking advantage of the exposed flank and the riflemen getting right behind it with that very, very nice Preda A. Clan coalition forces begin moving their light and medium assets north along the eastern side to help support the assault mechs that had otherwise been completely harried and outmaneuvered up until this point, while their assault mechs begin moving south, trying to open up against the assault mechs that we otherwise didn't have any kind of opposition for, leaving the word of Blake their choice of targets. And even though the Preda manages to leap through the air and get to the back of the rifleman, he doesn't manage to do a whole lot of damage. A lot of the shots manage to tag, and the armor mostly deflects it. He falls over, he goes in to kick, and he manages to miss, landing on the ground himself. Clan heavies start trading shots in earnest, causing all kinds of damage for the word of Blake. But it's mostly of no concern. We've got a lot of armor to chew through, and we're just going to keep plowing forward. While on the northern highlands, the proto-mechs are taking extensive losses. A lot of them are dinged up, and they're having trouble making it into the forest, and the mechs themselves don't want to engage. There's something to be said about something close to a division worth of infantry all hunkering down behind the trees. They're all anti-mech capable too. Hunter sees an opportunity to make awesome happen as he sends the Berserker into the face of the Clan Marauder. Coalition Marauder does everything it can to fight on valiantly, but it is just cut off as the Coalition assault mechs are way out of position to be able to do any kind of support for them, as the other mediums and light assets continue to harry them and the riflemen as the assault mechs also close in on the Word of Blake Collection Center. It doesn't really stop them though from penning back the Malak, but we do what we can with that. He's got a really high to hit mod, so long as you keep moving fast, just like a clan mech, you can do everything you can to keep him alive. That's how you should play most clan forces actually. You should always assume that they're a light or a medium unit if you can move like a light or a medium unit. And even though the Malak has been caught in a corner, he fires back at the Highlander, gets a through armor critical, and takes the last gyro point on it, putting him down and leaving the Coalition short another assault mech. They've lost the King Crab, the Highlander, the Rifleman is in dire straits, and the rest of their units are out of position to do much of anything for the collection center in the center of the board, leaving it completely up to the clans to pull it through. Nonetheless, the Marauder takes a savage beating from several assault mechs, falls over, and so does the poor Berserker, not being able to get out its deadly hatchet attack. And with that, the Highlands are called a draw, as the proto-mechs were too badly damaged to get rid of the entrenched infantry, and the mechs themselves were really unlikely to go in there and dig them out, just as the same as the infantry were unlikely to clear through the open to try to take on the mechs. And the city is called for the Word of Blake. They damaged quite a bit of the coalition forces to such a degree that it was clear where the game was going to go. And that leaves 2 coalition wins, 1 draw, and 1 win for the Word of Blake. The final game, Match 5, will decide whether or not the Word of Blake can pull out a draw for the campaign. Stay tuned to find out.